Welcome to this year's LINA Conference, Alliances for a Resourceful City, bringing together a variety of member institutions and emerging talents from all over Europe. From a pool of 548 submissions to the LINA platform, 28 has been selected to come and present the projects further today. Congratulations. I'm Josephine Michaud, and I'm the founder and CEO of Copenhagen Architecture Festival, in short, just CAFEX. And we have been members of the LINA platform since the very beginning. It is widely acknowledged that it's to a large degree due to a globally dominant Western narrative about progress built on ideas of growth through imperialism, colonization, and extractivism that we're now facing multiple crises of rapid climate change, loss of biodiversity, and growing inequality. If we are to create a better future, we need new ideas of how to move forward, including changing our ways of thinking and practicing architecture. Ideas and practices will be presented and discussed these coming days on how we can inhabit our shared planet differently than what has been the predominant extractive practices so far. Next door, there's also an exhibition that I invite you to see during the breaks, if you have time. It's called Rethinking Resources, and, well, I actually don't know the title, but it's showcasing design solutions that stay within the planetary boundaries that you can visit. It's really just out the door and to the left. And hopefully we will go back in a few days inspired and with tools and energy to act the best we can on these multiple crises we are all facing. Thank you to the Secretary of LINA for asking us to host the conference this year, being situated in the World Capital of Architecture. And also thank you for the very nice collaboration on getting the content and all the logistics in place for this conference. Also thank you to Matteo Schelik for having initiated and been the primary driver behind making this network happen. Thank you to the Royal Academy of Architecture for the partnership and for hosting us in their facilities. Thank you to the Mayor of Culture in Copenhagen for accepting our invitation to come and welcome you all. And thank you to my team from CAFEX for helping out with more or less everything, every day. And thank you all for coming. Next up is Jakob Brandberg Knudsen, Dean of the Royal Academy of Architecture in Copenhagen. And he'll say a few words, and he will be followed by Copenhagen's Mayor of Culture, Mia Nygaard. And finally, Head of LINA, Matteo Schelik, will come here, up here and finalize the welcome speeches and bring you further. Okay.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming here to the Royal Danish Academy. We've been looking forward to see you. It's very interesting to have a group of thinkers like you in the audience here. We are an old institution. We have been educating architects for 269 years now, 1754, one of the oldest. We've joined forces with design later and conservation, and today we have around 1,350 students, of which 800 are architects. And then we have research and artistic research. And we talk a lot about some of the same issues. It's very dear to us what's happening here. The Royal Danish Academy was probably the first institution to adapt the Sustainable Development Goals as part of the curriculum. We did that actually just after they were introduced. And we didn't ask our students to accept them, we asked them to discuss them and to see if it was a way of thinking, if it could move us somehow. And we are still doing this. We have now a new strategy called Create, Collaborate and Change, and we think that the collaborative thing is actually what we need, all of us, to deal with some of these very complicated issues in the world. How do we address this using architecture? I think we all know that the green transition we are standing in front of is not only about technical issues, it's also about getting this other something that we can do in architecture and design to try to find out how can we make this into a livable world, how can we make it into a desirable world, something which is not only about kind of solving the problem but actually getting beyond that. I would also say it in another way that we know that architects are both part of the solution but also part of the problem. We're also part of an industry where we are changing architecture, bathrooms, interiors every 5 years, every 10 years. So we need to be aware of how we are producing. We are also part of, in a way, a fashion industry. And we need to kind of to re-understand the role of the architect, I think, in order to address this. So when you write, humanity is vastly exceeding our planetary boundaries, the ways in which we inhabit our planet are due for an immediate and radical change. In this environmental emergency, architects are called to take the lead. I could not agree more. I think it is so right that we need to think about this. Next door, we have this big exhibition called Planetary Boundaries, as was just mentioned. It's something we do yearly. We ask everybody here at the Royal Danish Academy to participate in discussing a subject. Before it was climate, it was welfare, it was circular economy. And this year it's called Planetary Boundaries. So we have asked students, researchers, artistic researchers to come forward, and we have an external panel evaluating and curating the exhibition. And then we put up this exhibition as a way to discuss. And I think, and I hope you go there, I think it's a quite good exhibition. I think we sometimes forget as architects that we do have a superpower, which is different from most other. So, you know, the world of people is full of people who can write reports and make spreadsheets, but something is happening in the moment you do something more, that you actually put out a proposal in the world. You start to discuss possible futures, not the final solution, but the power of being able to make images of a possible future is really a superpower. And sometimes we are really underestimating what we could do to the world if we dare to go out and discuss it. So I hope this is what's happening here in the coming few days, or 2 days, that you will have these good discussions. And then welcome again to Copenhagen. I hope you enjoy your time here at the Royal Danish Academy. Thanks.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for having me, actually. I've been looking forward to coming. I was not going to be here because I had a previous arrangement. It was luckily for me cancelled because I actually so much enjoy whatever city planning and things can do. Also, welcome in the year where Copenhagen has been the capital of world architecture. And some of you, if any of you, were at the opening speech or space at that time, would have heard me say this, which is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's by Vera Rubin. She was the first woman astronomer to work in NASA. And she said, "Don't shoot for the stars. We already know what's there. Shoot for the spaces in between, because that's where all the mystery lies." And to me, that's actually what city planning should be all about, the spaces in between. I mean, we know what's there in the buildings, and yes, we should also enhance our building, we should refurbish them, we should think of the planetary boundaries and all these things. But if you think about urban cities, if you think about that more and more people actually want to come and live here, if you think about the changing demographies, then what are all the challenges that we are actually facing? Well, in Copenhagen, we've been voted the most livable city for so many years, as I've said. For a long time, with livability comes responsibility. Responsibility for the social disadvantaged people, responsibility for the rising senior population, responsibility for what we have, the clean water. Yes, you can swim in it, but can we keep swimming in it? Responsibility for, I don't know how to say that, and you might actually be better at it because you are the people with the superpowers. But for creating new ways, innovative ways to keep living, building, being alive, as designers, as artists, as architects, I ask you to please help us do this, but in a way where we all survive and where we all have a better life. And I don't know, as a politician, how we necessarily do this just at once. I was just thinking when Jakob was talking, this is a political issue to also change that, because in Denmark, labor is really expensive. I'm in the middle of moving something, and I am trying or building a new space in my apartment. And I am trying to reuse as much as possible. So I have my old 60-something table from the 60s, a really nice design table, but it really had to be refurbished. It cost me more than a new wooden table would cost to have it refurbished. I did it anyway, and it's not to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that is one of the issues we need to solve if it keeps being cheaper for the individual to choose actually just buying new things instead of reusing what we already have. And I'm not a person who can actually do this by myself, so I did have to have someone do it. So there's all these things that we need help with, but we also need help with our everyday life. I am one of the people, and yes, I am here as a mayor of culture and leisure, but I want to have more culture. I want to have more inspiration in my urban planning, in the spaces in between. I would like to see more art, more design in our public spaces. I would love for someone to come up with new benches in Copenhagen. And I know the Copenhagen bench is really popular and everybody thinks it's really great. But maybe we could have some more artistic benches that would inspire people to not just sit and talk, which we hopefully would talk to each other, but also to go out and create other things or make me think about the reuse of my furnitures or the benches. If you see them right now in Copenhagen at the Copenhagen City Hall right out on the square, there are these benches that are actually this high because they say if we don't do anything about climate changes, you will need to actually have to climb this way because there would be water up to here. To sit on them, you have to climb up. So make me think when I go into my urban space. Come with ideas that I can actually help all of you implement so that we together can actually have more livable, more responsible cities. That's my hope for this and every other conference and everything you do as designers, architects, urban planners, and then just really have a great time at the conference and welcome to Copenhagen again.
Thank you, the Mayor of Culture of the City of Copenhagen. We are happy to be here not only because it's the World Capital of Architecture this year, but also because it's the city from where a lot of contemporary concepts that are important for what we are thinking about within LINA platform have been launched in the past year. Thank you, the Dean of the Royal Academy, for hosting us here in your premises. And thank you, Josephine Michaud and the Copenhagen Architecture Festival. You have been a member of the platforms from the beginning when it was still called Future Architecture Platform. And you have contributed a lot to how the platform developed with your dedication, with the opportunities that you offered to fellows during these years, but also by collaborating with other members. And you helped us shape the platform in what it is today. And thanks to all the members also who are here today, the member organizations who helped us organize the latest call with your activity and promotion. You made us achieve the result that is really interesting, and we are looking to a nice program that is coming this year. Just a moment. So we are launching the annual conference, which is with which we are going to start this year's annual program. I would also like to thank the Slovenian Embassy of Copenhagen, which helped us a lot in organizing the event here, because as we are working within the Faculty of Architecture in Ljubljana, working on a long distance, it was quite a challenge this year. And I would like to thank also to all the speakers that have come and will contribute to the conference today. We entitled this conference alliances for resourceful city. And in these 2 days, we will have 2 panels and discussions and 2 days of panel discussions and keynote lectures. And as I said, we will mark the launch of 23-24 LINA architecture program. This will be a series of workshops, lectures, different kind of production, book launches, exhibition, conferences all around Europe, together in a collaboration with LINA members and LINA fellows. Hence, I would like to welcome especially the 2nd generation of LINA fellows who were selected by the members to come to this conference to present these projects after they have applied to LINA Open Call this summer. Connecting you as emerging talents with organizations as important players within the platform is particularly important for us. When we studied architecture, and my God, that was almost 30 years ago, architecture was completely different and the world was completely different. And there have been many changes that happened slowly and we adopted them, and now there are changes that are coming with the climate change and we cannot look away anymore. We just feel them every day. And I can say that from my own experience. In the past 2 months I have been dealing with floods that have destroyed large parts of Slovenia, and a lot of similar events have happened across Europe in other countries as well this year. And we are aware that this was not a special year, but this is something that we'll have to deal with and live with in the future years. And the projects that you're bringing in to the LINA platform and working on them are particularly important in that sense. So today we will focus on the thematic panels with the 28 featured LINA fellows. There are going to be 5 panels, and from LINA coordination team, Hanna, Nusha, Maya, and Matea, we will going to be the moderators of these sections. And the aim of the panels is to present the projects of LINA fellows and the authors behind those panels and have maybe a short discussion about that. Let's start with the first panel immediately. And this panel is titled Exploring Coexistence. It's about invisible, and I'm calling up the representatives of and the applicants of these panels. These are invisible jobs in the city. Océane, Ragoucy, Johanna, Johanna Musch, The Missing Dimension, Mario Molina from RDI Studio Eden's Archipelago, Rajna Avramova, The Minor and Its Spatialities, Witnessing by Objects of the Encounter, and E+D, Memoryscapes of Sarajevo. And let's start. Also in this panel, we will hear the presentation of 2 out of 3 EU Miss Awards, Young Talent 23 winners, namely as a result of collaboration between LINA and EU Miss Awards Young Talent, which is an initiative of the Fundación Miss van der Rohe, which is also a member of the platform, and is also supported by the EU. The 3 winners of this award are including among LINA fellows this year. The Young Talent Award is granted to 3 qualifying university master's degrees, which include a design proposal. The selection is made by a jury, and so we have the 3 winners here today. Let's start with the first presentation. Océane, Ragoucy, and invisible jobs in the city.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Océane Ragoucy, and I'm an architect and independent curator. Well, 6 or 7 years ago, for a project where a station of the Greater Paris new metro was about to be built, I got interested into people with jobs who dig. This is how I interviewed the grave digger of one of Paris' most famous cemetery, the cemetery of the Père Lachaise. And this encounter was so interesting, so moving, and I learned so many things about his occupation first and the city itself, and how it manages its soil, the ground, and how it deals in a very practical way with its dead bodies, things that I had never heard of and that I had never read anywhere else, that I decided to go on, and I started a series about unknown jobs that I call invisible jobs. So I did many interviews that were published in the French press. Just to give you examples, I interviewed an extreme cleaner. It's someone who cleans after death, flooded or burnt scenes, or a contraceptive pigeon loft manager. It's someone who shakes pigeon eggs by hand every second week for pigeon birth control. And each time, those are real jobs. And each time it brought such a deep, genuine and original understanding on people's occupation, how the city works and its care, maintenance, infrastructure, that I decided to focus on occupations in Paris and invisible jobs in Paris. So I'm currently working on a series of podcasts that is produced by the Pavillon de l'Arsenal, which is a French institution in Paris. And the next stage of the project will take the form of an inquiry into the city's future jobs. So what are the jobs people will be doing in like 30 or 50 years from now with climate change, with change in the habits, and what can we expect? So this is exactly the kind of project I'm interested into. There is a situation, a fact that is very close to us, and as soon as we start to really watch it, to dig into it, we get to understand it, and it totally changes the way we see everything else. So I was trained in cinema, in arts and digital media, in architecture, and then I studied with Bruno Latour in his experimental program in arts and politics, and I think it made me able to initiate all my projects in a kind of displacement or decentering that I like to apply in all the fields of my practice. So I have worked in architecture and urban design offices for about 12 years, and well, I've been 100% independent for 3 years now, so it's quite like even I've had side projects all the time, but it's like 3 years for my own practice. It takes many different forms. I curate exhibition, cultural programs, I write, make talks, teach, and I'm a consultant. Just to tell you a few things I'm doing now, beside the podcast series, I'm currently an associate lecturer at Paris Malaquais Architecture School, so in Paris, where my main teaching is a master's research seminar about architecture inquiry. I also direct thesis at the NC, the French National School of Industrial Design, and I'm an associate editor at AOC, which is an amazing French daily journal where I edit articles about architecture, city, ecology, Anthropocene. And I do a lot of interviews with artists, thinkers. Last one was 2 weeks ago with anthropologist Tim Ingold and artist Joséphine Michel, and we talked about their latest book on birds. Well, next week I'm the curator of the National Days of Architecture at the MUSEM in Marseille, where I'm inviting around 40 guests to talk about the relation between the museum and the city. So I currently live between Paris and Athens, Greece. I mainly work in France, and I'm really happy to meet new people here, institutions, and to make connections and partnership, obviously. As a curator, I'm really interested and curious to discover new projects and ideas, but also to take my practice at another level, because I've been an independent worker for just a few years, and so now I'm willing to just stabilize and reinforce my practice as a curator, writer, and consultant. So I think I'm just willing to bring to LINA my experience and multi-scale projects, and I'm late, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next presenter, and I apologize for the wrong pronunciations of any name. Our next presenter is Johanna Musch, also coming from France, and her project is The Missing Dimension.
The pronunciation is perfect.
Thank you.
So, hello everyone. I'm really honored and privileged to be around you all. I'm the co-founder of the multidisciplinary collective Omarel, and we are based in France. I'm working across social design, cultural and digital projects, creative research and learning experiences. Our practice is based on community-led experiments. And for this, we like to use collective imagination and fiction to build a common ground of shared knowledge. Our research on regenerative practices led us to realize there were some type of blind spot in the current city making, or to be more precise, missing dimension. Space making is rarely associated with the notion of time at its core, and only in terms of efficiency. We want to maximize the use of a building, for example. And yesterday, Andreas Ruby said there's no longer white page and there's always lines already there, and I believe this too for time. However, unlike space, time is difficult to perceive. Those lines are difficult to perceive. So how can we sense time? How can we reconnect with the time of the living world and Earth to reach long-term thinking? How can we embrace a long-term vision of time and reconnect with ancient beliefs? The mission of the project, The Missing Dimension, is to explore different perception of time and space combined, but also creating for this some type of artifact inspired by the work of scientists, eco-activists, researchers, and artists. The goal is to propose a comprehensive approach to chronotopic methodology to aim towards regenerative city making. The project could take various forms, including participatory forms, such as workshop, collective field research, and or exhibition. At the moment, we've been collecting a lot of research on the perception of time towards regenerative city, and we started to build a scale of how can we regenerate. And from there, I want to push the notion further and work with students, citizens, and organization toward the construction of our tools, experiences. Yes, so happy to meet you all, and also the fellows with who I like to collaborate as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Maria de la Molina Perez Tomé. She comes from Spain, and she is one of the EU Miss Young Talent Awards winners with the project Eden's Archipelago.
Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be here and being part of this event. And this adventure for me, as he said, started when I was nominated as one of the winners of the Foundation of Mies van der Rohe. Since that moment, my way of thinking architecture, I thought that was like something like in common with a lot of people, but I keep forward in my way of thinking, and I started to notice that there is a lot to do in this field around the world, because I think that we have already built enough, and even though we try to build more and more, instead of think about that there is no good or bad architecture, but you have to focus on what are the needs of the place that we face in every project that is presented. So I notice about it when I make like an exchange program in Shanghai, and I noticed that in the same time the world is connected. The world is like for us, and we have to respect it and protect it. So my final project degree, that is the one that is over here, the main theme sought was to find an idea that comes from a need, and at the same time to find a reason or an excuse to be in the world instead of what is already there, right? So for me, in the first part, was to recover the southern slope for a park in Madrid, and the excuse was to ensure the green heritage of a city as Madrid that is really crowded and polluted. So for me, there were two challenges, were different but connected. Was the place and the persistence. They were connected because for me, I never doubt about that the most important thing for the project was to respect the crop and the roots. Because they were already there, and they were speaking for me all the time during like all of the process, right? So I decided to go like a step further and think about that I have to face a program with delicate things that were there, and not just only to think about typologies that we used to take for granted. You know what I mean when I said like you think about a hospital, I mean an office or something like that. Well, in my case, I have to think about a greenhouse that was going to implement in a nursery. So I have to like delete in my mind what I try to think about a greenhouse and think more about the place and the needs that were over there. And I think that at the same time, there are a lot of projects that we try to solve all of the problems that arises in the world in an ecosystem like that we are around. But I think that this could be a good example for everyone to bear in mind that we have to control what we are designing, right? And to think that our responsibility is to create beauty, but from like the regeneration and the rebuilding and the recycling of the places, because like the earth gives everything to architecture, and we are not concerned all the time that what we are doing, right? And for now, I think that it's very important as an architect not to think only in the project, like this is a good project for me, like to be commissioned or like to be the new Norman Foster. I think that all of us have to like think about what the place like is telling us, and moreover than the typology and the project. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next presenter is Rajna Avramova from Austria with the project The Miner and its Specialities.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Rajna. As a practitioner architect working on already existing buildings, I can define my work as mostly editorial, focusing on spaces that play a supporting role in a bigger structures, which makes me some kind of a small minor architect. The project, The Miner and its Specialities, which I'm presenting today, builds upon these interests in these overlooked spaces. The project is a self-initiated research exploring minor architectures at the bottom of major structures and their potential for power. It's also a critique on the complex world of architecture, oversaturated with the built form, forgetting the form in between, the space constituted by people and their actions, but by their everyday life, interacting with the built environment in a different, the so-called minor mode. So what are minor architectures? Emerging in Deleuze and Guattari's analysis on minor literatures, such as in works of Jill Stoner and other contemporary researchers and thinkers, minor architectures have been defined as subversive actions that deconstruct the built environment. These spatial actions build upon latent forces, trigger them, and reveal new and sometimes imaginary worlds that, due to their immaterial nature, find realm on the margins of architecture and even between disciplines. That makes speculation and even fiction a very important part from minor architectures. The project appeals for learning how these other immaterialities, spatial conditions, and practices that contemporary architectures do not see, feel, or represent can be read and understood. The subject of minor architectures is the minor. It refers to the minority on the bottom of major structures, but it also refers to the minor architect. They also act from below, like a dog digging a hole or a rat digging a burrow. The work of a minor architect tends to be invisible. No building construction, but deconstruction is their motto. All they need is a keen eye to be able to capture all the imaginarities that minor architectures offer. All they need is a cartographic eye to be able to see that string of swimming pools. And to finish, Elizabeth Grotz asked 20 years ago if there is such thing as a Deleuzian architecture. Today, I would say yes, there is, and yes, we need it more than ever. In times like this, when the architectural language is dual and lacks an identity of its own, we are witnessing the perfect possibilities to make this numbness vibrate. The minor mode could help. It could show us how flexible architecture is. It could open and deterritorialize interiorities and create lines of escape. It could deconstruct objects into spaces and relations. It could break subjects into collectives. And at the end, it could free architecture from culture and bring it to its natural state. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Giga
Yes.
Tsikarishvili,
Yes.
from the collective Witnessing,
Yes.
with the project Objects of the Encounter.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be present here. It's a great pleasure. I'm excited to be presenting here in Copenhagen, so it's a great pleasure for me. The project I'm here to present, it's called Object of the Encounter, developed under the framework of the newly established artistic research platform called Witnessing. Generally, a platform operates in between art, architecture, and design, and aims to merge them with expanded perspectives of human subjectivity, aesthetics, and ethics. It was established in collaboration with my colleague, Tatuli Japashvili, who is also here. While both of us have a background in architecture, the project is natural continuation also our two distinct research projects, one in artistic research and critical design, and another one in visual culture. Tatul is a researcher, artist, curator, and her interest is she studies complex behavior of images, the notion of the feminine. I'm also an artist, architect and researcher, mostly working in intersections between art and architecture, exploring the complex connections between humanity and post-nature. So far, we have worked on small-scale architectural projects, site-specific installations, exhibition curations, and critical writing, and seeking to create liminal spaces where the transformative processes can unfold. Our project offers a methodological framework which attends to the emotional intensities that principally recast our perception in contrast to the comfort of familiar and often harmful practices. The proposed methodology for an artistic research consists of a three-layered framework. The first level is theoretical, where environmental, urban and social issues are critically informed by different perspectives. On the second level, by following humble human and non-human agents. The theoretical foundation materializes through participatory fieldwork and archival studies. The third level involves design interventions, which results in deviant objects, and they are serving as a mediums for experiencing affective emotions and capable of challenging established predominant order. Of course, this process, this framework is not that kind of strictly chronological, and it intersects between each other. Yeah, and this methodology we already experimenting with several projects, and we believe in its openness, fluidity, as well as capacity to amplify voices, different vulnerable entities, and establish bottom-up approaches. Through alignment, integration, and re-evaluation of the proposed methodology with their neighboring approaches, we would like to contribute to fostering a research culture within spatial, architectural, and design projects. Yeah, and it is of growing significance in a current time of emergency to encourage thinking, imaginative thinking, in order to challenge predominant structures, establish more sustainable approaches, and nurture alternative forms of coexistence. Yeah, thank you. We are eager to discuss more about our projects and also your projects and future collaborations as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last presenter in this group is Dinko Jelečević from Bosnia and Herzegovina. He is our second winner of the EU Award Young Talent, EU Miss Awards Young Talent 2023. And he will present his project, Memoryscapes of Sarajevo.
Hello everyone, my name is Dinko. My partner Anna and I applied for the project Memoryscapes of Sarajevo, and I'm going to briefly present to you our idea. The project is based on the 5 years of research in which we analyzed several locations in our hometown of Sarajevo that are significant for their local collective memory. In our research, we have taken into account the complicated political context, the local culture of remembrance, and social sustainability. Our research resulted in 2 internationally acclaimed master thesis projects and as well Anna's ongoing PhD. All these projects share a common architectural language and aim to contribute to a more just and solidarity-driven society. To briefly present our 2 master projects, Walter is a design project that proposes a revitalization of a neglected historic site in Sarajevo in an adaptive reuse methodology. Canopsia, on the other hand, doesn't deal with neglect, but with the touristification and banalization of Sarajevo's famous war tunnel, and is also an architectural design project and is offering an alternative approach to memorialization. Both of these projects are case studies for what our general ideas are. Those ideas are dealing with collective trauma in a meaningful way and giving places back to the community and allowing diverse neighborhoods to embrace their heterogeneity and use it as a source of strength rather than division. Sarajevo is, of course, not unique in the challenges of dealing with collective memory. many places with contested history, especially those where ethnicity and religion play a major role, struggle with similar issues of manipulation and neglect of places of collective memory. That is why we would like to present our research to a wider audience in the form of a lecture, exhibition, or a workshop, and also open discussions on social sustainability in places marked with complicated collective memory. Apart from the projects presented today, we also developed several other proposals for places of memory in Bosnia, in which we used our research and design skills. Other than working together, Anna and I are also working both in academia and the architectural practice and have experience with organizing exhibitions and holding lectures and workshops. Anna is currently teaching at the University of TU Graz as a teaching assistant, and I'm working at the Hohenzollern-Architektur in Graz. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to discussing this topic more with you in the following days.
Discussing your projects in the matchmaking sessions in this afternoon. And now I'm inviting on the stage Hanna Ziermann to take over the next group. Hanna is our communication, and press director, but much, much more.
I mean, everyone on the LINA team is, there's like 5 of us and not full time, so everyone kind of has to pitch in. But thanks, Mateusz, for handing it over. I'm going to introduce to you the second panel. So the panel is titled Cycles of Transformation. And I would like to invite the LINA Fellows to join me on stage right now. So these are Irene Dominguez Serrano, she's from Spain, and she's representing the project Future Foodscapes Compendium. George Guledani is not with us today, but he's going to be presenting through video. Jade Apack from France is presenting the project Building Transparency. Margarida Waco from Sweden is presenting her project Cosmic Undergrounds. And Nuno Vasconcelos from the Portuguese collective DOING.pt has applied with his project Cycle of Materials. And Estelle Barriol from Studio ACTE is from the Netherlands with the project Building, Unbuilding and Rebuilding. Come. Hey guys, I hope you're doing okay. So I think you saw how things are going before. We're just going to start in that order. And you can take the microphones. You can hold them in your hands as well if you want to before. But yeah, let's start with Irene. Can you please tell me more about yourself and your project and how come you're here?
Well, I am part of a research group, the Future Foodscapes Research Unit. And what we are doing here is to talk and research about our food system, how it works, and how it really implicates all built and natural environment. And yes, it's a wide project. And can I start? Okay. So, the Future Foodscapes Research Unit is a collective and a platform, as I talk, focused on the planetary food system. It explores the food system relationship with the built and natural environments, the role of technology and policy in future agri-food models, and how art, architecture, and culture contribute to its transformation. Functioning as an open research platform, the Foodscapes Research Unit is composed of many members and agents with different levels of involvement. Its core consists of 8 interdisciplinary researchers from various backgrounds. This core is connected to a growing community of experts and institutions that support the unit's work and research. Currently, it's based in Venice, hosted by the Spanish Pavilion at the Venice Architecture Biennale, curated by Eduardo Castillo Vinuesa and Manuel Ocaña, in collaboration with TVA 21 and the European Climate Foundation. At a time when energy issues are more relevant than ever, food remains in the background. The way we produce, distribute, and consume food mobilize our societies, shape our metropolises, and transforms our geographies more radically than any other energy source. The Future Foodscapes Research Unit look at the potential impact of reshaping the food system as an architectural endeavor. We are in a world where the molecular is tectonic and where every bite we take reverberates across the planet. No more than ever, we must redesign it with its ecosystemic implications in mind, aiming to create a more sustainable, equitable, but also a resilient future. So our research is divided in two phases. The first one is the development of a compendium which collects 300 case studies around the production, distribution, and consumption of food. Focusing as well as soils. That's what we call foundation. And the food waste also, that we call digestion. These 5 stages of the world food system constitute of 5 agendas. During the development of this work, we did different field trips within the context of Venice every week. The pictures that you've seen of the screen are part of them. And additionally to the case studies, this compendium will gather a growing archive of references and bibliographic material provided by the growing network of experts associated with this research unit. And secondly, by the end of this year, we will produce a series of speculative audiovisual reports showcasing the most promising case studies and reflecting around 3 main ideas, their implications. And this will be biodiversity, the kitchenless city, and food waste. Following that, the goal will be to initiate an implementation phase where some of these case studies will be prototyped in real life. And as you can see, Foodscapes is a project that covers a wide variety of scales and contexts, and through the materialization in different formats, such as videos, conferences, workshops, or catalogs, allows its dissemination to the greatest number of disciplines and public in general. So, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Let's just have a round of applause first, of course. So the next project is going to be presented through video, and it's from Guledani. He's from Georgia, and his project is titled Georgian Railways, How Trains Can Remake a Country. Let's play the video, please. No, but I'm sure that we're gonna come up with. But yeah, it's always kind of sad when there's 28 spaces for fellows. It's so difficult to get everyone here at the same time. And this year, it so happens that 2 LINA fellows couldn't join us in Copenhagen. I'd like to say hi to both teams, so both to Georgi and also to the Irish team, who's in one of the panels later with the project As If Radio. It would be wonderful to have them here, but I hope we can see them soon. And they're.
Hi, my name is George. I'm a media producer and a writer from Tbilisi. My project is called Georgian Railways, How Trains Can Remake a Country. But first I want to say a couple of words about myself. 10 years ago, due to rapid changes in the urban environment of Tbilisi, I became interested in urban design in general, that is good and bad practices of urban planning and transportation. And since then I produced TV documentaries and articles that promoted an understanding of certain important aspects of urban development to show how they could affect our everyday lives in a good and bad way. Aside from that, I also do a lot of urban and architectural photography and show the transformation of local urban spaces for about 20 years. As of my proposal, the problem I'll try to address is that despite inheriting a quite broad railway network from Soviet period, the Georgian passenger railway system has not been fully modernized since the country's independence, which resulted in gradually reduced train routes and declining quality of service. The country does not use its existing railway network to its full potential. And this is particularly noticeable around the capital city, Tbilisi, where 1/3 of the country's population is concentrated. Due to the lack of an appropriate passenger train service, people from close villages and small satellite towns around Tbilisi choose private cars or minibuses as their main means of transportation to the capital for jobs, education, or other business. This causes traffic congestion on the roads inside and around Tbilisi, which consequently snowballs into other problems such as air pollution, difficulties with mobility, and in general poor quality of life. With this project, I want to present a general study in the form of a film that will show all the means and benefits of developing an effective suburban or a hybrid urban-suburban railway network around Tbilisi. I see this project as a sort of an eye-opener for general public and possibly the government to show with facts and numbers how the use of existing passenger railway infrastructure could improve congestion, pollution, and mobility problems for people, especially in communities and small towns around the capital, and how absurd it is not to use this opportunity. In terms of possible partners, I think of Oslo Architecture Triennale, which is looking for films about these kinds of initiatives that could positively affect local communities. I think together we can show how modernization of passenger railway could radically change lives of people in satellite towns and small communities around Tbilisi. Thank you.
Thanks to Master Georgi, and hi, I hope you're watching and hope to see you soon. And yeah, I'm passing the word to Jade Apack from France with your project Building Transparency. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I'm so happy for being there. So yeah, thank you, Lina. I'm an architect. I'm an independent researcher, and I'm the co-founder of the Lost and Find Collective that we were founded like 4 years ago. So I'm here to introduce a project Building Transparency, which is not really a project, but more like a big box on which we can put like different kind of practice that we can rely on these topics like building transparency. The notion, we first started thinking about the notion of like building transparency 2 years ago with the collective when we were invited to do like a research residency in Geneva because we wanted to speak about ecology with a large audience. So it was a way for us to do like a easy analogy with the food transparency and apply it to the construction sector in order to raise up some topics. So in this way, it helps us to focus on different thematics. One of them, it's of course the ingredients. So like what is the materials that we use in architecture, where I come from, what are the impacts everywhere, what do we do with the rest of the food, with the waste in architecture. But to be more deeper in this question of like ingredients, it's also like who owns the firms, who have interests where, and what can we do as an architect to make it more transparent. In this way, we are super interested of like what climate activists does in some ways, because they're raising up some topics about it, like Lafarge and interest in with terrorists, like Autodesk, which is like sponsoring, not sponsoring, but giving the software for like a very big excavator in a coal mine in Germany. And all of this that we don't really know as an architect, that what could be done for this to raise up the awareness around it. But building transparency, it's also a way to talk about the cookers and the tenant of the restaurant, as you say. Who is cooking the building, and who is owning and putting money on the architecture project, and like how could we act into it, and moreover, how can we invite citizens in this project? So we are working a lot with people. We are doing a lot of like consultation in different kind of context. Like shortly, for example, this year I will work in the jail with some prisoners. So we are super active into this part of architecture. And I realized something because building transparency is a translation from French, but when you translate it in English, it's appears something which is super nice, which is like you pass from a passive form of showing what exists to an active form of like, how do you build the transparency? How do we here build the transparency together in architecture? And this is super nice because it's kind of shape this concept in another way, which is like super more active, and which kind of action can we do in this? So yeah, I think like more like the most part of my research are around this. And for the year coming, we would like to work with all of you. Like I was saying a lot of questions during this presentation, and if some of you are sharing this question, we will really like to collaborate with you to get deeper into this question in any shape of it. So it could be like, of course, like talks, workshop, which is like a small experiment, but also like long-time residency that could help us to very like experiment deeper some topics. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Jade. That's really an interesting analogy you've selected with your project. And yeah, now it's time for Margarita Waco to take the board. She was applying from Sweden with her project Cosmic Underground. Please take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So somehow starting from the onset of an understanding that ecologies are bodies. Bodies of bodies of bodies. There are bits of matter and energy that unite to become humans and microbes, ponds and planets, communities and worlds. Also, these bodies are also complex nexus that allow us to read and trace their commodification and their transformation into profit-making apparatus. And they are ultimately entities that are put to work against their own interests. These, or variously situated ecological bodies, are central to the project that I'm presenting today, titled Cosmic Undergrounds. And it's wonderful to be here, to be in the very same space that has been so foundational and critical in my formation. And thinking as an architect, I graduated from this school. So my name is Margarita Waco, and I hold an MA in architecture. In addition to this, I also have a background in sustainable development and policy option from Sciences Po in Paris. I also have a background in journalism from Roskilde University. And somehow this transdisciplinary background has led me to operate within the field in various capacity. As a design researcher working here, focusing predominantly on urbanization in East Africa. As a curator, curating 4 editions of the Aarhus Architecture Festival over a 7-year time span. As a strategist and a contributing editor for the Funambulist magazine, which is a bimestral publication based in Paris, dedicated to the politics of space and bodies. And then also, most recently, as an educator and a director of an architectural design studio in London, Royal College of Art, which we critically examine the afterlives of toxicity, supply chains, and sacrifice zones through continuously generating spatial propositions that call for non-extractive and low-impact architecture and forms of constructions. All of this comes together in this project, Cosmic Underground. I only have one featured image here, which is a still from a free channel film titled Sedimentary Myths, that I presented and developed for this year's Architecture Biennale in Venice as part of the main exhibition. It is a body of work that investigates the afterlives of extractivism, and moreover, it unfolds as an assemblage that traces the contours of a planetary system, planetary operation that is associated with resource extraction, and particularly in my native region, which is Cabinda in Angola. This body of work also somehow continuously weaves past, present, and futures in nonlinear ways, in an attempt to kind of gesture towards what I call possible becomings, put it differently, possible forms of worlding, ways of existing in this world, despite of, against, and amidst the continuum of extractivism. And it's in this very particular framework of the latter, worlding, that I situate Cosmic Undergrounds. And for this, I'm particularly interested in what Christina Sharp, American scholar and writer Christina Sharp, calls microclimates. Sharp published a book in 2016 titled In the Wake, in which she speaks about the weather and the climate, both in their physical and in the figurative sense. She provides a critical offering that allows us to read climate and the weather in socio-political terms, in terms of atmospheres, somehow referring to the totality of the political conditions in which we live. In Christina Sharp's thinking, atmospheres allow certain bodies to thrive, while others are left to languish, which is somehow made evident through bodies and communities that are relegated to fringes of territory, whose existence is conditioned by infrastructures of toxicity, of capitalism, and of extractivism. This project takes seriously the notion of atmospheres, and it's somehow a continuation and an ongoing inquiry into the political instrumentalization, but also the financialization of the built environment. And the idea somehow is for it to translate into an architectural inquiry by virtue of an open-ended inventory, somehow an assemblage that mobilizes various of mediums that span both material explorations, textual, oral, and audiovisual forms that are all at once rooted in the speculative, in the mythical, in the spectral, to ultimately push for these microclimates. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much again, Margarita. I really look forward to seeing where your project sort of evolves into the next year, and especially how it enriches the various LINA architecture program activities that you're bound to be a part of. Thanks. And yeah, now I'm passing the word over to Nuno Vasconcelos. He's from Portugal. He's representing his collective DOING.pt, and they applied with the project Cycle of Materials. Please. Tell us more.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be here, and thank you for your time to listen.
I'd just like to say that we need to replace the slide behind you because that is not you. But please go on. Sorry, just for the tech team.
Okay. So I just need to correct one thing. This doing is not a collective. It's more a practice that I develop, but with other teams. And these teams are changing from project to project, normally. So it's a practice to develop projects and ideas, and is working on the research and the logistics around the materials that we can find in the city. It's in a urban context normally. And these materials normally are considered waste. So I'm talking more about materials to be used on earth construction, like excavations, building excavations, demolitions that happen inside the city, and these materials goes somewhere then. And there are other materials that are more subproducts from other industries, normally around the city, like ceramics productions or quarries, waste. And so the idea is to work and research on these materials and make it possible to build with them, combine them, and make it available for a specific project. So these steps, I realized that are more or less common in the projects I try to get involved. And it's about trying to transform the waste, let's say, flow that are already happening in the city, and intersect this flow and use it. Not just the material, but also the logistics that are around. It's not about creating a totally new logistic, but it's more about to work with the stakeholders that are already on these positions. Can be the construction company, the company that moves the earth, the quarries, and the institutions that are promoting institutions or particulars that are promoting the work. So basically, it's about giving a practical answer for this research, for these logistics, and to produce something. This is, let's say, the main goal of the practice. This is repeated actually in each process, more or less, in each project, more or less the same process. And there are also the input to have educational component when it's possible. In city interventions and ephemeral interventions, workshops with the schools and other institutions. Right now, I'm more in a long-term collaborating with the association as well that promotes vernacular architecture and bringing these concepts inside. Also with the art schools. This association is in Portugal, Oficinas do Convento Association. And with the art school in Antwerp, it's called the Expanding Academy, integrated in the Fine Art School of Antwerp. And is more an artistic project. So there are this practical approach to give an answer to a specific project and the site building. But there is also this component about a lot of research on the materials and the kind of educational format, not just a formal, it's more informal education, let's say. Also to try to create a kind of work that gives also a fair condition in between all the participants, like beginning in the person that is digging, not directly, but trying to understand how this goes from the starting point of the material. And all this is about the cycle of the material, the embodied energy, and to be aware of that, to bring this notion that I think it's really important nowadays in the construction, in education, in any place. So I think it's that.
Thank you. Along with our next presentation by Estelle Barriol. And yeah, she's going to, she's representing Studio ACTE. They're from the Netherlands. And she's representing her project, Building, Unbuilding, and Rebuilding. And there you go, Estelle, please.
Thank you. I'm Estelle Barriol. I'm an architect, French, and based in the Netherlands. So I'll bring you through a few of our projects and also a little bit of our practice. So Studio ACTE is a practice which is actually designing and building. We have a big affinity for like hands-on and material research as well. So the project you see now, it's like a series of interventions. We have decided to build and design ourselves, but also source the material ourselves. The interest for us is to question what kind of language and aesthetic we can give to architecture, which is made from reuse, repurpose, waste materials, but also bio-based materials. So we do try to look at the broadest panels of available material, and we question where we source, how we source, where does the material come from, and what kind of history do they have. So what is kind of also interesting is that we discovered that some materials are actually reused materials or material we can reuse, which dates from colonial times, which also for us is a good question in what kind of symbols and what kind of picture do we display in those buildings that actually use those materials, which have a very heavy history, but also that have the capacity to be used for 200 years more. So within this practice, it's also the question on small scale, but larger scale, how can we like question on smaller scale by building ourselves, but also how can we upscale that on larger projects such as social housing and so on. This project is also particularly interesting for us because it was a chance to actually build, unbuild, and then rebuild again. So question, how do we do if we have to dismantle ourselves a building and what kind of state the material is and how can we rebuild and design from it. So on the left is like the original sleeping cabin that was in Rotterdam, and on the right a greenhouse which reused more or less the same material but in a different way. So that was for us a good start to question all of this. So what do we do as Studio ACTE is, of course, what you just saw, so design, build on small scale. But we also work on exhibition, teaching in the Rotterdam and Amsterdam Academy. We work on larger scale project, which is, of course, a very big challenge because how do you upscale and how do you question even more those languages? Those projects are without installations, they are like very low tech. But as soon as you upscale to 200 social housing, you of course enter different topics. So starting at a small scale is also a good start to question those materials and their potentials. So on the left is the wood I was mentioning. Those woods are like coming from the harbor of Rotterdam. They are like called meerpalen, mooring poles. And they're actually hardwood, tropical woods that comes from Suriname and Guyana. And on the left here, you also see like some plastic panels, acrylates, and these plastic panels are also a good reflection of like what kind of waste the agriculture industry has been producing in the Netherlands, and the large availability of these materials also bring us to reconsider what is at hand. So yeah, I think I've been defining a little bit the practice, how we envision these coming years, where we like to continue to do what we do. But also to challenge a different form of project. We are now busy with like building a temporary theater with only reused materials. We're also working on an exhibition in Paris called The Spolia, which obviously is also about those languages, about reuse. And we work on currently on the spatial research about the architecture, design and digital design of the Architecture Institute in the Netherlands. Oh no, sorry, Het Nieuw Institute, let's call it this way. So that's what we are doing. And besides, yeah, we're very open to any sort of collaboration, from writing to building. We're very hands-on, but we like to also teach and so on. So okay. I think that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Estelle. I really look forward to all the writing and all the building. And thank you, the entire panel, for very interesting presentations of projects that are so diverse in a very similar field. I think it's interesting to see like the variety of approaches that kind of broach this one large, immovable problem that we have. I really look forward to listening more about them in the following year. And yeah, everyone who's looking at the streaming, go make a coffee. We're going to do the same. And we're going to come back in about 25 minutes. So 45 sharp, we're starting here. Thank you. Ah, yes, I agree. I will put them on during the pause. Is that okay? No. Do you agree with that? I just wanted to go to the tech team, but we'll make sure that they're represented. So they'll be rolling. Thank you. And just give me a little bit of a second before you all get up. So here in the auditorium, you can also see some other people who are also presenting their own very, very interesting projects. And this is the architectural display. This is a local accompaniment to our official program. And they represent the local, very interesting initiatives that were invited by our partners, Copenhagen Architecture Festival, and of course our team, to present what they do and what's happening around here. So please talk to them. Check out what they're doing. And thank you so much, Almen Archive, Femark Collective, Beyond Holidays, Tideland Studios, Bodil and Mathilde, Drömekontoret, oh, I'm sorry, I butchered that one. Drömekontoret, yes, come correct. The Dream Office, thank you. That's much nicer, easier for me. And Space Girls. So yeah, go say hi. And please come back at 11:40-ish, because we really start at 45. We want to give a chance to the third panel of fellows to present themselves with a full audience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We really appreciate that you got back in time so that we can continue with the next panel. My name is Nusha. I'm coordinator of LINA. And this next panel will be titled Beyond City Limits. I would like to invite to the stage the following LINA fellows: Vida Rukli, Emma Williams, Laura Hurley, Hedwig van der Linden, Rachel Rouzaud, and Magdalena Gorecka. Please. The first one to present will be Vida from Italy, representing Academy of Margins. Please, Vida, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I'm Vida, part of a collective called Robida. Robida is a collective made of architects. Some of us studied at the Faculty of Architecture in Ljubljana, others at the U of in Venice, others at the FAUP in Porto. Designers, researchers, and artists based in Topolove, a very small, half-abandoned village of 25 inhabitants on the borderlands between Slovenia and Italy. in Italy. The collective, whose work is not only site-specific but somehow site-symbiotic, works with multidisciplinary approaches to different projects, usually rooted in Topolo, or which take Topolo as a starting point for reflections and practices. We operate at the intersection of written and spoken word and spatial practices, carrying on since almost 10 years a magazine, Robida magazine, which I have here with me if you are interested, having our own community radio, organizing actions of caretaking of the landscapes surrounding the village, reflecting on and practicing specific modes of dwelling in the place, and with our own Academy of Margins, questioning and interpreting the village as a learning site. The Academy of Margins is a project born in 2022, imagined as a school which has different possible configurations. It can take the shape of a summer school, it can be a series of workshops or lectures where margins are not only the site, but also the widely intended content of the Academy. Margins, geographical, topographical, as well as social, in opposition to centers, are spaces which are usually perceived as conservative, slow, uncreative, and nostalgic. On the contrary, we like to intend them as, and here I'm quoting some of our reference point, places of radical openness, quoting bell hooks, or spaces particularly fertile with possibilities for change, as Catriona Mortimer Sandilands wrote, zones of unpredictability at the edges of discursive stability, quoting Anna Tsing. Margins, as well as peripheries, borders, edges, interstitial spaces, and liminal zones are places of meetings, impacts, and crossing where ideas, life worlds, experiences, and cultures collide and intermingle. Within the Academy of Margins, contents are situated in the place, adapting to it, changing through it. The context, therefore, ceases to be the scenery of learning and becomes a participant to the development of reflections, questions, and knowledge articulations. Within our academy, different disciplines intersect, such as spatial practices, environmental humanities, philosophy, art practices, and design. We ask ourselves, what knowledge can we collect from abandoned micro-landscapes, the stream, the young humble forest, the fallen fruit tree covered by brambles but still blooming? What do ruins teach us? How to inhabit a space not only by asking what is our role in it, but also by taking responsibility, by acting with our ability to respond, quoting Gloria Anzaldúa, to those questions. How to stay in the in-between of stasis and fluidity that characterizes the margins. And also, can sedentarity in a time of nomadism and constant traveling be political? Can we learn from plants the non-appropriative relation to their milieu? So far, the Academy had two main summer schools last year and this year. We had events scattered through the year, and we collaborated with different people from different backgrounds, such as the philosopher of the vegetal world, Michael Marder, with whom we had today's seminar titled Mystical Ecologies, the Slovene artist and architect Marija Potrč, the architect and curator Rosario Talevi from Floating University, with which we are also collaborating, and also the biennial of design of Ljubljana. And I'm very interested to see these days where our methodology, which is so deeply rooted, contextual, situated, and in a way also radical because of it, how can this methodology and work move through different European institutions? So yeah, let's see where these conversations go these days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vida. The next one is actually Emma from Germany presenting the project Soil Knowledge.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm a practicing architect and researcher based in Berlin. I've mainly worked on building with a focus on healthcare buildings and housing in the form of collective housing for the Mietshäuser Syndicat. Currently, alongside writing and researching, I continue to work on small-scale renovations, recently in Morocco, building a rammed earth house with Leopold Banchini, and I'm editing a book on resilience with Johanna Petrescu. Samea Valley from Counterspace sums up well my initial point of departure for my research on soil knowledge. We need to ask ourselves if the world around us is being made in our image. In 2019, I set out to investigate the vernacular earthen flat roof construction of northern Kurdistan, known as Turkey. Early on, it became clear that the architectural narratives should not be separated from the situated socio-ecologies they relate to, and there is a deeper meaning to soil and our interaction with it. By sharing knowledge and experiences, I used mappings and drawings to listen to the living memories of ways of life, building and farming practices, stories of vegetation, animal life, surrounding areas, trade, mythologies, and cultural practices. Using these methodologies, we can reveal the hidden, missing, left out, and how these building typologies are at risk of disappearing. The Nihil is a wetland surrounded by high mountain ranges, bordering two nation states, and has always been crossed by trade routes and where people have been displaced many times over in the last 100 years. In recent years, the intensification of militarization, oppression of inhabitants, drainage of wetlands for an airport, and damaging water management practices have meant people and animals are living around things that are blocked off, disconnected, and collective livelihoods and embodied knowledges are becoming lost. The four main grasses that are used in the earthen vernacular grow and are harvested on the Nihil. They are called delaf, pelesh, kramish, and kerea in Kumanji, and are used in the flat roof construction, earthen bricks, and plaster. This image of grasses counters traditional disciplinary exceptionalism. Without drawings of how to construct these buildings, it leaves space to consider the needed, embodied, and soil knowledge. Soil knowledge is the knowledge of how to construct and repair these buildings in combination with the knowledge of living with the soils, waters, elements, and the creatures in and around, care of everything that comes out of and goes back into the soil. It requires a deep understanding of the inherent circulation between socio-ecologies and manual bodily performance in a given space and time. The mapping attempts to trace together the many layers of information, conduits, man-made and natural, a kind of diagram to illustrate and somewhat overlay the space they exist in. All life here is bound to the cycles of water, which gives and takes, with ebbs and flows, marks the ever-changing spaces in between, a main point of intersection, and creates a vast field of interconnection. The 5 settlements we visited had different characteristics and building forms, earthen, stone, concrete, and a mixture, often hacked with concrete and plastic. This is a practice of keeping some form of the vernacular alive and suggests attempts to counter the amnesia caused by modernity, practicing not forgetting. People here have often had their homes and livelihood violently taken from them and have been forced into an economy of the land, and I would argue into an economy of a reliance on concrete and plastic. On a larger scale, all these inhabitants relied on relations to other settlements and natural areas in their region. Their home was not a building, a house, nor village, but a wider interconnection of wetlands, high plateau pasture areas, villages and areas in the mountains, and so on. The home was a cosmos. It countered notions of private property. The approaches and methodologies used here question which stories are hidden, missing, left out, which need to be told and listened to, and ask if we can retell them in new ways, using not only knowledge of interdisciplinary, intersectional, and indigenous methodologies, but considering different cultural languages and forms of understanding the world that lie outside of our norms. I see an urgent and compelling need for us to reconsider and debunk the Western European canon of architectural, history, narratives, and practices in order to engage with our role in climate change and displacing people. The pursuit of growth damages the planet and the ecology, as well as causing social divisions. We need to find ways to connect with and through other stories, reconnect to complex adaptive ecosystems we depend on for survival in order to understand the world beyond our urban fabric. Perhaps architects need to be mediators not just between people and buildings, but between people, buildings, and ecosystems to begin to imagine new worlds.
Thank you, Emma. A really important topic. Our next LINA Fellow is Laura Hurley from Ireland. And it's really important to say that Laura got EU Miss Awards Young Talent 2023, and she's a winner. The project that she's going to present is titled Peripheral Cartographies. Please, Laura, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Hurley, and I'm an architectural graduate originally from Ireland, but I'm now living in London. The name of my project is Peripheral Cartographies, and it is a body of work which came about initially through my master's degree, but I'm currently in the process of expanding it further. Situated on Inishbofin, a remote island off the west coast of Galway in Ireland, my project proposes and defines alternate cartographical practices. At its core is a generative drawing methodology, devised as an investigative strategy through which to examine the island. The resulting design proposal was an institution which facilitates a post-colonial reinscription of the island through a process of countermapping. This institution has the goal of embodying and recording the fragile fields which are under threat due to the ongoing erosion of the islands, both physically and culturally. This project holds the view that we are at a critical juncture at which we must reappraise our engagement with the earth. The proposal serves as a physical reminder of the fragility of the island's coastline. Perched as they are on the cliff top, the archive and its contents will eventually be destroyed if erosion is not stemmed. Going forth, I will be working to expand my research to encompass other sites throughout Europe to test and expand the methodology more widely. This project materialized through an intuitive response to site in which I drew upon my pre-existing interest in hand drafting to create gestural and highly dense drawings at a bodily scale. In my work, I tend to take a multidisciplinary approach, which blends the disciplines of architecture and art. Through this project, I've developed a deeper sense of how these associated yet distinct fields can be brought together to intensify one's understanding of place, as well as how this can be used to externalize perceptions and memories. In recent years, particularly through my master's degree, I've developed an interest in filmmaking and animation as a means to augment my architectural research and design, namely through the addition of temporal and sonic elements. I've also expanded my practice to include experimental writing exercises, building on my existing writing and research skills. Thematically, my work has a consistent focus on spatial justice, with my undergraduate thesis focusing on highlighting the terrible living conditions of asylum seekers within the direct provision system in Ireland. This was executed through the act of recording and preserving these spaces with architectural drawings and diagrams. My more recent work also draws on this theme of materializing marginalized or otherwise hidden experiences and histories, in this case, the island of Inishbofin's historical colonization. Beyond this, my experience is primarily in working on public buildings in an architectural practice in Ireland. I hold a definite affinity for projects which use architecture as a vehicle by which to achieve a social mission of some kind, whether that be providing social housing, a service to a community, or access to knowledge and education. Aside from this, I have experience with exhibition design and construction, which I very much see as a tool with which to amplify the core themes of a project, as well as to make the work more digestible and accessible to those who are not architecturally trained, allowing for a wider engagement. I am here with the goal of challenging myself and exposing myself to a broader range of perspectives and approaches at a European scale. I'm particularly excited to get a chance to work internationally and to collaborate and forge connections with people and organizations from around Europe. I feel that I will be able to offer a varied and diverse skill set, from the abstract and conceptual to the practicalities of research. My unique approach to problem solving and design is particularly flexible, and I enjoy operating on the edges of my comfort zone. While I already have a distinct sense of what interests me, I feel that the most valuable thing for someone like myself, who is so early on in establishing a career in architecture, is to be thrust into as many scenarios as I possibly can be. Through this platform, I hope to attain new skills as well as expanding my current strengths. My main goal would be to come out of this experience with a further defined sense of the direction I would like to take with my career, while also contributing to the overall development of regenerative design and thinking as part of the LINA network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And congrats again for the award. Next one is Hedwig van der Linden from Derive. She comes from Netherlands to present the project Degrowing the Rural Village of the Future. Please, Hedwig, go ahead.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. We're very excited to be here. Thanks a lot for the invitation. My name is Hedwig van der Linden, and together with Kevin Westerveld, we are from Derive. Derive is what we define as the art of getting lost, and we see this getting lost also as the core of our work. We are a full-time design practice nowadays with a team of 4, and we are currently based in Brussels. It's a fascinating city on many levels, as you may know, and we come from Rotterdam, the Netherlands, where we are trained as architects at Delft University of Technology. And after working for several offices and research institutes like 51N4E and Architecture Workroom Brussels, we are very motivated to continue this strength of imagination together with research and co-creation, and that's actually the start of Derive. I will now use this time to briefly introduce our practice and the selection of our projects, and we're very open to have a chat with you later on. Our name Derive derives from the method of the situationiste started by Guy Debord that was developed in the 1950s of the last century. It was a counter movement against the post-war modernists. We built upon this work of the situationist that was based on a human eye-level methodology. And we're adding new layers on top of that, responding to the current socio-economic challenges that we're facing by focusing also on the non-human perspectives. And why do we actually think this is actually relevant, the Derive? Now, for us, it's a way to provide air within complex transition challenges. And we use the Derive in a twofold way. Firstly, for ourselves, to actually get to know a place and walk around, wander around, getting lost ourselves. But also as a methodology to create spaces for dialogue and to make connections and already co-creating local coalitions during the research and design process. And we like to create a situation with the people and to create a space where people are actually equal. And secondly, it's also an attitude to explore, to get lost in all the connections that you could come up with, to explore a lot of different possible futures. Besides working on these projects ranging from urban and rural strategies to scenographies and exhibitions and interventions also in public spaces, we like to reserve time for writing and to reflect, and we do that as well with students from the TU Delft and from the Academy of Architecture in Rotterdam, and we're also now working on making maps and translating the Derive into something physical. We do commissioned work, but we also initiate our own projects. One example is in Rotterdam, where we search for climate-adaptive solutions in the post-war parameter block. And another example of a research by design study is about the future of allotment gardens, since they are under pressure for housing developments. The coming weeks, we show our work at the Dutch Design Week in Eindhoven and at the exhibition at the New Institute in Rotterdam in collaboration with the Dutch Chief Government Architect, and in the framework of our residency at the Architecture Center in Amsterdam, where we designed the permanent exhibition for the center. It is based on the principles of universal design. And together with the Flemish government architect, we're working on a narrative and a publication about the future of the countryside in Belgium. And we're also researching this topic in the Netherlands. And that's also the project that we handed in, where you see some images now. We're exploring the degrowth of a future village. We work on a housing extension of the village of Nagelen, which is a modernistic village in the Dutch polders. It was built in the 1950s, and it had a very forward-thinking design and a process by the time. It was designed by famous Dutch architects such as Aldo van Eyck, and it's an icon of the makeable society, since it was built on reclaimed land from the sea, and it was based on the modernist principles. And for the future of this village, our aim is to connect the challenges of the village and the polder together by interweaving these different landscapes. And we're doing performative walks in the Dutch polders, where you saw one of the images. We walk along the water to feel like the transition from the landscape to the village. And we're pleading for design collectives to develop this new sustainable building culture of the 21st century, as was also the case in the 1950s. And we think that this community of LINA is a good starting point to work on these new collectives. to do research by design, to do walking methodologies, and we're very open to collaborate, for instance, on curation, lectures, public walks, you name it, we're up to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hedwig. Thank you, Kevin, also. The next project, an atlas of forest occupations, will be presented by Bernadetta de Budzik. She is a Polish-French spatial practitioner based in France. Please, Bernadetta, go ahead.
Thank you. We are so happy to be here. I'm going to present a duo, French-Polish duo of architects. I'm working with Rouzaud. We are based in Paris, and both of us, we are practitioners, but on top of our work as an architect, we have our own personal undertakings. Rachel is teaching in Versailles and School of Architecture in Bordeaux, but on top of that, she is running her artistic practice. She is working with tapestry, but using also her experience as an architect. So she's seeing tapestry as this language between architects and non-architects. She's using tapestry as a form of communication, and she's doing this through workshop. The last one. Yeah.
Let's wait for Hannah to match the slides, but please go ahead in the
Okay, okay, perfect, sorry. As I was saying, last of the workshop, she... Oh, these are the correct Yes, ones. These are the correct, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. One of the last workshops she worked on was with a collaboration with Palais de Tokyo. She worked with kids on future of cities and sustainability in the future. For me, I'm working mostly with research and writing. Since my master thesis, I've been writing about protest, ecofeminism, queer feminism, and topics related to that. What is common for us is that we are both makers. We are having a very hands-on approach. We are working with tapestry, but also with textile. As our visual language, language of representation, we are also using written word, exhibition. We love to collaborate in different workshops and talks. We feel that it's very important to open architecture practice and engage with also non-architects. For our project that we applied for LINA, it's a project called for an atlas of forest occupation. Forest occupation is a form of civil disobedience. It's treated as a last resort, usually by eco-protesters. They are doing this to to save the forest, prevent them from logging. We are interested in that because we think that as an architects, we can learn so much from those protesters. First of all, we can see the difference in action between activism, eco-activism and architecture. We both have the same agenda. We're both working on sustainability, but we can see that maybe architects are lacking radicality and action. So we believe that combining those two can be very beneficial for architects. The next point would be for us to also work with grassroots movements and honoring them in a way of showing that not only architecture are responsible for architecture, and most of architecture is actually done by non-architects. We also are interested in mapping these ephemeral actions because either if it's successful or not, it will disappear. As its core, it's the task of forest occupation. It will disappear, and only by mapping this and documenting, we can really show the impact and the scale that it has on climate change and sustainability and fight for sustainable future. Also, what is a core of our action as a duo is questioning hierarchy and domination system that we are living right now. And by studying this occupation, we can see how interesting and new ways of living this protester can make and can really make a community that is run by radical care and without any hierarchy, within a very linear system. And I think as architects, it's what we should aim in the future, planning our cities and planning architecture. And I think that's for our project. As I said, we are very happy to be here, and we would love to talk with you more about our project and possible ways of engaging with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadetta. Our last fellow from the Beyond City Limits panel is Magdalena Gorecka. She comes from a Danish collective, Foil&Soil Mishmash, and she will be presenting the project titled Alluring Rural. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Magdalena, and together with other Magdalena, who is sitting there, form a post-plastic interdisciplinary laboratory called Foil&Soil Mishmash. In our lab, we work with both synthetic and organic waste, aiming to entangle their unique characteristics in different contexts and settings. We are both academic employees. I teach at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, where I also conduct research together with United Nations called Interspecies Nursery. And Magdalena is a scientist, postdoc researcher at Danish Polymer Center, Denmark Technical University, here in Copenhagen. Alluring Rural, project thanks to which we are here now, addresses the accumulation of plastic waste in areas with high density of intensive agricultural activities. By working with methods sourced from these settings, the project explores materials and their translation into public spaces. It creates kind of visual narratives by juxtaposing past geological eras with contemporary consumerism, which is from where the term mishmash emerged. This project was developed in the sub-Carpathian region of Poland, which is where we both grew up, and in short, we know each other for 25 years already. However, the interest, or maybe the obsession with the material, ecological, and social entanglements that could potentially create messy and complex entities started in 2020. Back then, I worked on an urban project in the world's largest accumulation of plastic greenhouses in Europe, Almeria. The project consisted of 5 artifacts made of gigantic post-plastic panels from foil and infertile soil, which served for extreme pleasures, such as watching movies in cold, windy pools after a harsh day of work in overheated greenhouses. Afterwards, together with Magdalena, whose work is focused on invention of new materials, especially polymers, we began transforming these urban ideas into prototypes. So we continued mixing polymer foil, soil, agricultural waste in order to create an applicable conglomerate that could serve local communities. Soon after, a set of material samples emerged into a bigger set of prototypes, creating tables and sitting spaces. The prototypes were exhibited on several occasions this year, such as Milan Design Week. We use the term mishmash because we avoid working with strict definitions and with what is already defined, and prefer to focus on emerging, making mishmash a representation of everything and nothing at the same time. We are wondering about the idea of local materials because plastics are everywhere, in the layers of earth, the food we consume, and even in our bodies. This affects our work because we see all beings as combinations of various materials, both natural and man-made, inside and outside of ourselves. And together, during the LINA Fellowship, we see ourselves engaging in lectures, workshops in both field and laboratory settings, and other activities to explore so-called new frontiers of multi-material spatial design. Our ambition is to test and create. We enjoy both process and the outcome. Therefore, we can imagine ourselves developing structures or installations that emerge from various contexts we will encounter. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Magdalena. Are there any questions from the crowd, very quickly? No? Okay. I would like to thank all of the... Yeah, please, Andreas, go ahead.
Are you trying to actually make new products to replace plastic applications?
Yes, we are trying to make new products. Now we are in a phase of samples and prototyping, but there is still quite a long journey in front of us, and that's why we are also here. Also, yeah, not only.
And maybe to find a partner with whom she could potentially find a new material.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, I would like to welcome Maya Beutz, our colleague, who will moderate the fourth panel. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maya, and I'm a coordinator at the LINA platform. And I am welcoming the fourth panel with the name Progressive Cityscapes. I would like to invite the LINA fellows to join me on this stage. Alberto Roncelli from Denmark with the project The Grafted City. Effiom from Belgium, the project Migration and the Urbanization of Assimilation. Yeah. Alberto, please come to the stage. I'm not sure if Eva is here. Next, I would like to welcome Liva Dudareva from the Latvian collective METASITU, who will present the project The Degrowth Institute. And Chiara Drew from the Irish collective Soundcamp, but they will present their project as if radio air via pre-recorded video. And the last one, I would like to welcome Viktoria Mravčáková from the Slovak collective Spolka, and she will present the project Never Never School. So, I think we should start with the first one, Alberto. So, would you please present your project? Start? Yes, of course. Here you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Nice to see you all. I'm Alberto. I'm an architect. I'm Italian, but I'm based in Copenhagen for the last 3 years. And I work in a company called GSN, and where I'm mainly dealing with circular economy, circular design, and material innovation. But on the other side, I also pursue design researches, personal design researches. And the Grafted City project is one of these personal researches, and I would like to speak about this one. The project started 1.5 years ago with me biking around Copenhagen. That's, as you may have noticed, Copenhagen is all about biking. So I was biking around the city, and I live in a neighborhood, and biking, it's really expose yourself to the city in a very strange way. And my neighborhood, the neighborhood where I live, it's in between the city center and the outskirts of the city. And as in many European cities, also in Copenhagen, this part of the city has been through massive transformation and development in the last 50 years. And a mix of different urban typologies and program has mixed in this era. And all these transformations have produced a strange mix and a series of residuals, unloved, underused spaces. And by biking around, I started to notice these spaces, and I was really fascinated by these spaces. So my question was, which is the meaning of these spaces? Can we use these spaces when we think about the future cities, the future development? Can we use these spaces as key components of development? So I didn't have an answer, but I was very excited to try to get to something. So I started to investigate this question by doing two things. First thing was mapping these spaces. So I define an area, again in my neighborhood. I get very affected to the neighborhood at this point, but I define an area and I walk around by mapping all these particular spaces, trying to define what was a leftover, what was underused, what was interesting. And the learning from that is that I walked a lot, spent so many hours doing that, but at the same time it's very rich. The ecosystem of this space it's very rich and very diverse in the shapes and in the opportunities. And the second part of the research was okay, I have a series of these spaces. can I try to design something with these spaces? And I developed 16 prototypes, almost like sketches, trying to understand what are the programs that these spaces can host. And some of the 16 prototypes are like completely failure, because I give it a go, but it's a long process. And the learning there is that you need to rethink what kind of construction method you use. And it opened up a lot of questions. So which kind of architecture can be made in these spaces? Which is the role of the local communities when designing these spaces? Are they made to provide like temporary programs or ongoing program? And so my goal is really to open up all these questions to all of you guys. And my goal is to, in the next year, really trying to have a lot of feedbacks and other people involved, and trying to build up like a new narrative around these spaces that I think it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. Yes, Eva, thank you. Go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Iwa Effiom. I'm an architect, writer, producer, and filmmaker. And the project that I'm going to propose to you today is one that basically deals with the issue of migration, and specifically the migration that arises from sea level rises and essentially the Anthropocene, which the Global North has been the main kind of stakeholder of, and looking at how that affects what we consider to be the vernacular architectures of these Global North destination hubs. There's a biologist called Bernd Heydrich who speaks of movement as the essence of life. And I believe that this is the case, whether it's subatomic particles or whether it's planetary kind of orbits. It's essentially what allows us to understand that there is life. And what's happened in the last couple of decades is architecture has been more attuned to the understanding that we have to deal with these demographic shifts, whether it's housing homeless people in the early noughties, we all remember that kind of craze, or whether it's kind of housing more contemporarily the migrants escaped war from Ukraine. It is something that we address, or at least try to. And what my project seeks to do is to give a bigger understanding of how these migrations essentially changes the cities in which we live, and how, despite assimilation, these shifts that we see constitute a new vernacular. And I'm hoping to essentially go around certain contexts like Brussels, London, Berlin. I spoke to someone earlier who talked to me about Budapest, and to really kind of try to broaden this idea of what it means to have this vernacular architecture, but also to understand this kind of ephemeral kind of concept of nationhood. And to do this via a 3-channel film that will seek to interview people in these contexts to understand their kind of lived experience, but also match that with both the symbiology that already exists in these places, but also how this symbiology is adapted. And I hope today to kind of meet a few of you, that you'll ask me some difficult questions and make this already very beautiful day in Copenhagen maybe a bit less so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eva. I would like to welcome Liva Dudareva to say something about her project.
Hi, I'm Liva, and together with Eduardo, who is also here. Eduardo, please raise your hand. Keith is just sitting there with the yellow jacket, so you all know. But together we are METASITU, and we are super excited to be here. And yeah, we will be, I will be presenting our initiative, Degrowth Institute. And just before I start, honestly, it's been so incredible to hear a lot of references to degrowth, to post-growth, to limits of growth. So we feel we are here in the right time and the right place. So a bit about us. Our backgrounds are in landscape architecture, urbanism, and urban sociology. And Eduardo currently is living in Norway, where he's pursuing his PhD in experimental urban planning with a focus on participatory practices. And I am living in Athens, where I run my art practice about man-made minerals, and also I collaborate with an initiative, Restart Ukraine, that deals with thinking about post-war urban recovery. But okay, today we are talking about the Degrowth Institute. It's an initiative that began in 2015 in Ukraine. And the beginnings of that was to challenge the idea that urban success is embedded in growth, especially thinking about the fact that not every place has a privilege to grow. And you know, when we think about the post-industrial cities of declining populations, declining economies, which is the context in which Degrowth Institute actually operated, mainly in Ukraine. And I have to say that when you think about the degrowth, not from the point of privilege, where that's a choice, but inevitability, there's some hard lessons to be learned, and it's really challenging, but also I feel you really get to the bottom of the degrowth. So for us, degrowth is about kind of introducing new vocabularies and tools. And so these tools are basically horizontal engagement with local communities of the degrowing places. So that happens through participatory workshops, and something that we've been working over many, many years is actually developing these processes and some of the tools, such as the Degrowth Manual, which basically is a kind of workbook that we can lead the workshop with that workbook, but actually the idea is that anyone can do that using this publication. So, well, very timely. This is the Degrowth Manual. Well, basically it has several parts and components, but the main idea behind it is to really empower people to have take an ownership of the urban decision-making processes. And also, like, really to provide a space and again, like a kind of like a tools and setting where you can really think beyond the growth. So, the time is running out, but well, basically, what we would the kind of like an expertise that we have really lies in the participatory practices, but we also really love to work with spatial interventions about the degrowth, educational programs, workshops, exhibitions, and publications. And why we are here and why we're so excited to be here is the fact that we can all agree that city building as such, any city building process is extractive process. So in the future, probably all these places will face challenges of degrowth, either because of the global flows of capital or because of the climate change. So we're very keen to bring some of these ideas beyond the context where we usually operated. And yeah, and also think just beyond the built fabric, and how can we apply the degrowth thinking to repair our relationship with non-human and ecosystems. So yeah, thank you so much, and looking forward to talk more about the degrowth.
Thank you, Liva. I'm sure there will be plenty more time to present your project. And we are continuing with Chiara Drew. We will see the video from the Irish collective Soundcamp. The project's name is As If Radio Air.
Hello all at LINA, this is Soundcamp. We were really looking forward to meeting everybody in Copenhagen and we're sorry that we can't be there. Soundcamp are an arts cooperative working on sound and ecologies with members in Ireland, Germany, Greece and the UK. Our work appears as broadcasts, workshops, publications, sound devices and events. Recent projects include As If Radio, an experiment in ecological activist radio at COP26 in Glasgow, Land to Return, Land to Care with artists in Ukraine on sounds affected by the invasion, LAG, a residency for Sonic X 2022, and Spree Channel C radio group connecting rivers in London and Berlin. As part of the Acoustic Commons network, we coordinate the long-form transmission Reveille 2014 to present and a connected series of sound camps on Dawn Chorus Day each year. With Brandon LaBelle, we think of acoustics as a critical framework for engaging a politics of listening. For us, it also presents a set of tactics for collaboration, for gathering, for renewing and widening our habits of assembly, and a collection of resources for learning and planning. We like to run workshops in which participants build stream boxes from kits and use them to investigate the surrounding area by placing them in particular sites, listening remotely, discussing, and using the live feeds as materials for making ecological radio. We commissioned and developed the Pitch Portable Auditorium with Public Works and Michael Spears to be a semi-open structure and critical listening space where these experiments can be heard. We propose 3 scales of possible collaborations. A, making stream boxes in a workshop. B, making stream boxes and developing an open ecological radio station. C, making stream boxes, developing a station and creating a sounding structure to explore spatial possibilities of collective listening. These occasions could be a festival, study group or direct action. Thank you for listening and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you to Chiara. And here is our final panelist for this panel, Victoria Mravčáková from the collective Spolka. And she will present the project Never Never School.
Hello everyone, my name is Victoria, as I was introduced, and I'm an architect from the feminist collective Spolka. We are a group of currently 5 women, architects and sociologists, right now based in Slovakia, and all of us are from Slovakia as well. Well, no, we have 1 Ukrainian member now. Spolka as a collective was founded in 2016. Basically, many of us knew each other since high school and some of us also from the kindergarten. So, since we know each other for such a long time, what Spolka does is usually it's changing. However, we have a vision to create just and caring world through planning. Through, for example, creating more equal positions of actors in planning, thinking of diverse people, but also non-humans, elements of environment, cultural identities, and technologies. We do that, for example, through participation, introducing transdisciplinary planning in Slovakian context, but also mainstreaming the concept of care for environment, but also beyond that. It is very important for us to be a fair entity where we value each other, discuss and care, and we work as a non-hierarchical collective. We have the same say and same pay, 4-day working week, and currently we managed to make it our main job for all of us. So what we do a lot of research, we design, we do participatory planning, developing our own methods, curating, exhibition making, writing, critical mapping, strategic planning, and a lot of education. Oh, sorry. And I will try to demonstrate this general description on some of the projects that we've been doing recently. So the project we applied to LINA with was its project Never Never School. It is a self-initiated educational platform that we started in 2018, and this year was held the 4th edition. It is an interdisciplinary space, peer-to-peer learning. It's about utopias, it's about research about cities, and it's based in Košice in Slovakia. Each time is very different. We test new ways of learning, and we try to learn from each other. That's the main goal. And it also supports various ways of expressions, as you can see on the pictures, which are from the summer school. And also, we try to empower participants to come up with their own program. So we are not curating the whole thing, but we are also from the open call, trying to create a program from that. So maybe something like Lina. Previously, we focused on topics such as revisioning of housing estates from socialist times, planning with the river Hornad and bringing non-human perspectives in urban planning, concept of care in city planning, and this year we are focusing on housing in times of crisis, because Košice is very problematic in terms of homelessness, race-based segregation, and also the war with Ukraine. The war in Ukraine also created a lot of tension in the town. So this is just briefly about summer school, but we also very often work, we do a lot of commission work too. We work with different NGOs, municipalities and art institutions. For example, this year with an organization called Intimita, we have done research about menstruational poverty and also designing menstrual stations that will be spread by the end of this year throughout the whole Slovakia in the spaces that deal with menstrual poverty. And the way we do it is also that we try to search for funding together with them, so plan the whole project together. Also, since the full-scale invasion in Ukraine started, we've been very active in the first response. We were doing a lot of children's spaces, low-threshold community centers, and bomb shelters, and usually it was just very short projects. And also, as I mentioned, working a lot with participation. We do a lot of writing. We write in various magazines, mainly Slovak or Czech ones, focusing on architecture, feminist spatial practices, and currently we are also writing a chapter about feminist pedagogy. And for the future, we would like to expand what we mean by caring practice inside a collective, but also outside. Do maybe more projects that are based on research to design, expand on what we mean by feminist planning, especially maybe in our post-socialist context, if we can still call it that, and focusing on education, research, curating, prototyping, and maybe also continue with the topic of Never Never School, topic of housing, maybe prototype some things, yeah, and so on.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the contributors to this panel and introduce the lunch break now. So to all of those following us online, we'll be back at 2:30.
To this last part of today's conference. So we are going to start shortly with the 5th and last panel with the LINA Fellows. I'm Matea Curir and I co-manage the platform with Mateusz. And you had the possibility today to meet all the members of our team. So the last panel is titled Materials Matter. We will hear about the projects which were sent to the LINA Open Call this summer, and they deal mostly with reuse and recycling on a very broad level. So I would like to invite to the podium, please join me here, Anna Perugini from Italy. Her project is titled The Construction of an Olive. Then Ailo Ribas from Spain, from the collective Alba Hat, with the project Wild Hedges. Yannick Oslender from the German collective Baukreisel. I'm sorry if I haven't pronounced this correctly. The project is titled Reuse Matters. And Elizabeth Lee from the Irish collective Superposition. She will present the project Experimental House. And the last presenter at this panel is called Giulio Galasso. He comes from Italy, and his project is titled Miniera. So we'll wait for Giulio. Hi, Giulio. Very nice to having you all here. Yes, that will work. So we will start with the first project by Anna Perugini with the deconstruction of an olive. Anna, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm Anna Perugini. I am a designer and a researcher currently based in Italy. I am extremely interested in materials and craftsmanship. My background is industrial design, and a crucial part of my education focused on understanding manufacturing techniques and ways to transform a material into an object. I lived in London for over a decade, where I worked as both an industrial designer and an interior designer. And the way I selected materials for a commercial project was based on mostly aesthetics, functionality, costs, and values that a material can convey and can add to a project. However, in the past few years, my approach to materials has changed. I started considering materials and byproduct as matter intertwined with their ecosystem and production context. And this new approach to materials stem from my second master degree, master thesis, which I completed in 2022. My thesis was a situated research on the extraction and material culture of Carrara marble. It was an holistic analysis on how the material property of Carrara marble intertwine with its cultural significance. And from this analysis, I developed a research methodology which uses material properties and materials as a lens to unravel the cultural biases, the aesthetical norms, and the hierarchies that are perpetuated and reinforced through design practices. And now I'm trying to use this sort of material-centered approach to explore other contexts and to also approach more commercial projects. For the LINA Open Call, I presented my project, The Construction of an Olive, which is an ongoing material research investigating the possibility of designing objects with olive pomace. Olive pomace is the byproduct of extra virgin olive oil production. The project is situated in Italy, in a small village in the region of Marche. And with using an auto-ethnographic approach, the material research is how I try to understand and research the connections between design and food systems and agricultural production and waste. The project is experimental, the project is interdisciplinary, and it requires access to knowledge, skill, technical knowledge, and appropriate facilities. And I'm looking for collaborators and support to develop this project. And so I would be interested in applying to a residency and collaborate with institutions who share the same commitment in hands-on material research, in locally focused production, and less extractive design practices. I am also interested in sharing my experience and my knowledge with more academic, with both an academic and a wide audience. I would like to participate to lectures and workshops in university and engage with students, but also participating in museum events and participate in engaging with a wider audience to demystify the idea of design being just a frivolous or aesthetical discipline, when in fact design research can serve as a tool to analyze complex issues that regards everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. And now we go ahead with the project Wild Hedges, which will be presented by Ailo Ribas. Please.
Hi. Yeah, I'm part of Al Wahat. I'm here with Gabby, also from the collective. Sadly, Arij couldn't be here with us today because she lives in Jerusalem and she couldn't leave. So we all met on the Center for Research Architecture MA program at Goldsmiths, where we started collaborating. We started this project earlier this year. We took the prickly pear cactus as an entry point to look into various politics of extraction and colonial bioprospecting, as well as notions of invasive species. So for like a bit of historical context, the prickly pear cactus was brought to Spain and the Mediterranean by the Spanish in around the 16th century from Latin America in order to cultivate cochineal, which was used by many communities there to produce pigment, which was considered very valuable at the time. So essentially, the cactus became naturalized across the whole Mediterranean, but the insect didn't survive. And then the cactus was also taken to other countries, such as Australia, where it also spread out of control. And they introduced natural enemies in order to control the population, which included other species of cochineal. Which then spread to the Mediterranean and have been decimating the populations of cactus in the Mediterranean since. So we started the project through a residency in Palestine in January. And what we saw essentially was that 80% of the cactus were being killed by this insect. So rather than see it as a problem of an invasive species that needed to be killed and controlled, we wanted to learn how we can adapt to this change by learning from how these species adapt to change in their natural environments. So we kind of thought to ourselves, okay, so we have these materials, we have cactuses that are dying, and we have this insect. How can we use these materials in a constructive way with local communities and learning from material practices in other parts of the world, such as Mexico, who have been using some of these materials, like the cochineal, for much longer. So through workshops, we started to explore 3 different categories as part of the project: fibers, pigments, and food. So through fibers, we were using the dried fibers of the cactus, which you'll see in one of the images, to construct a temporary shade roof, as the fibers have this natural mesh quality, which is quite durable, but at the same time allows air and sunlight to permeate through. And we also were experimenting with the pigment to create dyes and paints. And we were also curious to explore the use of the cactus as a food source, especially as the growing aridity of the climate is forcing us to find more food sources that can withstand these arid climates. And while the fruit is eaten very widely in Palestine, there's not really a culture of eating the leaves as there is in Latin America, like such as nopal. So through these three themes, we kind of started exploring them there. And essentially, we want to take this project to different locations, such as Mexico and Spain, potentially Australia, to further explore these different materialities, both learning from local communities how they use these materials before returning to Palestine to work with the communities that we have been working with there, to share this knowledge and generate new knowledge around these materials in a landscape where cochineal is very recent. There has been there for maybe less than 10 years, so there's not really like a long-standing practice of using these materials, whereas they're also very widely available. Yeah, so that's that.
Thank you so much. Okay. And I sincerely hope your colleague is going to be safe and well. Okay, we go further with Yannick Oslender. You should speak about your collective because I will certainly not pronounce it correctly. But your project is titled Reuse Matters. Please.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we are Baukreisel, a collective of 13 architects, engineers, social scientists, and lawyers. We started as creative activists, practically extracting materials out of soon-to-be-demolished buildings and finding joy in creating beautiful objects and furniture out of it. We wanted to prove the concept that reuse is not just a very effective way to fight climate change, but also a way to create a new form of beauty and aesthetics. After our initial informal activism, last year Baukreisel officially became a non-profit. Either alone or together with partners, we are doing summer schools, as well as workshops, and above all, research. Just 2 weeks ago, this year's summer school took place at the Venice Biennale in the German pavilion. In a time when we are facing scarcity and the first objective is reduced, we've realized that we are actually standing in front of that huge pile of high-quality materials, and that is basically abundantly available, yet is just thrown away. And where others see the end looking at this pile, we see a new beginning. We figured out that there are two important reasons for reuse in the construction industry not taking off. Firstly, the processes have not been developed and rationalized yet. Secondly, the knowledge about them is neither generalized nor widely available. So simply put, we don't know how to reuse materials, and if somebody knows, nobody else does. With our research initiative, Reuse Matters, we want to change that. Our approach is to first select promising and impactful categories of materials. That means materials that have created a high amount of grey emissions, but at the same time show the potential to be reused in an industrial way at a meaningful scale. For each category, we find a building that we use as living lab. And here, we can develop and test practical knowledge that later can be generalized to be used in other buildings and other projects. Our first living lab, Concrete Matters, is dealing with the reuse of primary structures out of in situ concrete. Because of updated building regulations, the upper half of that building that you're just seeing is basically going to be chopped away. Together with the planners, craftsmen, and the city of Dortmund, we are exploring how to dismantle, test, and refurbish the structure so that it can be reused as foundation for new buildings. Concrete Matters is currently funded by Bauhaus Earth, who also supports us with their expert knowledge and in doing publications. We would be super glad to create a similar partnership with members of the LINA network. In Window Matters, we are developing ways to upgrade the insulation performance of window elements while keeping the frame and the sheets of glass. That way we can reuse them in other buildings, but even better, not take them out in the first place. System Matters' goal is to develop reuse pipelines for heating, cooling, and plumbing systems that are getting replaced during energy-related renovations. Both living labs are taking place in a boarding school near Freiburg, Germany, that is getting renovated section after section. Finally, we are starting to develop a digital model for reuse processes. With it, we can store and model all of our knowledge from our living labs, thus making it available for everyone. At the same time, we are able to automate processes that make sense when working with the huge variety of non-standardized parts that we encounter when reusing. As you saw, Reuse Matters is quite modular and can be extended with other material categories as well as living labs in different countries. Through LINA, we hope to find new project partners and funding for existing living labs and hopefully even set up new ones. Of course, we are also very interested in doing workshops and teaching activities that complement the living labs that we are already working on and the topics that we are working on. And yeah, maybe we even find some help developing and then filling our data model.
Thank you very much, Yannick. So we go to our fourth presentation by Elizabeth Lee. She comes from the Irish collective Superposition, and she will present the project Experimental House.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for having us here, and it's been a real pleasure to listen to all of the presentations this morning, so thank you to all of the fellows. My name is Elspeth Lee. Sorry, it's okay. It's a difficult one. And I'm one half of Superposition, and my better half, Don, is over here. So we're both from Ireland, but we are also teaching at the university in Hong Kong. So we're straddling those two locales, and also our work straddles teaching, research, and practice. Simply put, our interest is in how buildings are made and what they are made from, rather than what we make. Contemporary building practice is highly financialized and industrialized. Our work is looking at alternative construction methodologies, which utilize local resources, challenge standardization, and embrace uncertainty. We try to make work that is specific rather than generic, with a community-centered vision of evolving tradition and place. This image here is of a typical housing estate in Ireland, and it could be anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. Despite variations in context and landscape, homes and buildings across Ireland are virtually indistinguishable from each other and from generic construction globally. And this is something that we've seen firsthand in the proliferation of identikit houses throughout rural China. The concrete block, the 8x4 plywood sheet, the standard profiles define a ubiquitous way of making which spans continents. Standardization is easy to automate, to police, and to predict outcomes from, but it makes the integration of locally available and natural materials very difficult. And it also reduces the improvisational quality of craft and community-led practices. And that results in a construction process that is more akin to the assembly of a kit of parts than something that is truly creative. We do not see architecture as a problem solving, but rather as reconciliation. We don't think that any material is sustainable if it is applied at a scale that is unsustainable. And as such, we are very interested in design methodology over the development of repeatable material solutions. And breaking with the existing status quo is not easy. So all of our projects so far have been generated not by work stages or a client brief, but through proposition, debate, and engagement with community in place. And every place encountered, with the associated lack of resources, skilled labor, or site constraints, offers an opportunity for architectural expression. We believe that working with uncertainty does not mean accepting chaos, and that any attempt to eliminate variability is not consistent with material reality. So we have built, over the past few years, a number of small-scale projects, developing our methodology in China, in Hong Kong, and in Ireland, but there are significant challenges that we're facing towards scaling up. So we're really interested to meet with potential partners who can help us to generate funding or take a chance on building something where we can begin to use on-site testing and management practices to mitigate risk in the use of non-standard materials and irregular material systems. We're looking at how do we develop efficient and equitable labor models based around one-off material systems, and in what ways can teaching, learning, and the university structure be integrated into the delivery of mainstream architecture. We're looking forward to speaking more about this and other issues, hopefully some more difficult questions after the presentation and after the conference. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we will come to the very last presentation. Sorry, Giulio, you've been picked by chance. It's to be the very, very last. So we come from Italy, and you will present the project called Miniera. Yeah, it's already there, so go ahead.
So good afternoon. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm Giulio, I'm an architect. I'm based in Zurich. I'm working there as an assistant at the ETH. And at the same time, I work on my own projects with my partner, Natalia, who is there. We recently won a competition, a prize in a competition, and we opened our own practice, Continentale. In our practice, we work on 20th century buildings and spaces, in particular the ones that have been built in our largest town. As we all know, 20th century was a period of explosive growth for most of European cities, and still nowadays we live in spaces and buildings that have been built for a completely different view of the world than ours. So in our practice, we tackle this issue combining research and projects. We are both involved in teaching, as I said, me at ETH, Natalia in Politecnico di Milano, and we do also our own researches. And now I introduce our latest one, which is Miniera. Well, the starting point is that in Italy there are 10 million abandoned houses. These are mostly single-family houses that have been built in the post-war decades, but are and that are now not inhabited anymore. So, like, the problem of these houses is that they are located in places where nobody wants to live anymore, and so they are left abandoned there, decaying, without a perspective of future usage. The striking fact is that these houses that you see portrayed here, I mean, these are pictures that I've taken to my own house, my friend's house. These houses are completely inhabitable, actually. They are still in good construction condition. They are still furnished. And yeah, the paradox is solely that they cannot be sold, for example, because the real estate markets are collapsed, basically. So our proposal was as simple as it sounds. Like we were inspired also by what's happening all around Europe with, for example, with the German pavilion at this year Venice Biennale. And we thought, why not to use all these furnitures and building material to give a new life to all these abandoned public and collective facilities that are into these places. And so, like, we started to survey this phenomenon, really like on our own, through our networks of friends. And now we are in contact with specialists to identify strategies for the reuse of these materials. So this is our most recent research project, is still at its beginning. We already worked on other topics always related to 20th century heritage. We did a research on post-war Milanese gardens, which is a system of public, semi-private spaces spread around Milan that is also underused because it doesn't fit anymore the contemporary lifestyle aspiration. And yeah, that is a research that we already took around. We presented it in several locations, and like we also did a workshop in Mendrisio about that, like about how building regulation could be used for climate upgrade. And yeah, that is to say just that we are very interested in collaborating with other members, with LINA members, to get to know other European cases that are that could be of our interest. So thank you.
Thank you. Giulio, maybe just a quick sub-question. So, Miniera in English would be?
Mine. Okay. So that's a funny story because actually in these towns there were mines. In my hometown, actually there was a sulfus mine, and that was 100 years ago the main source of wealth for this territory. And yeah, the idea is that these abandoned houses are the source of wealth. They could be the source of wealth of today for these places.
Okay, I have a quick sub-question. We have a few minutes for all of you. So why do you think it's so important to be so passionate about materials? Maybe if you can squeeze it in a sentence, if it's possible. Because all of your projects are dealing with materials. If there is an answer, or too difficult?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's quite obvious that when talking about climate change, material is just the most important thing to where you can work on when you're doing architecture. And yeah, I think everybody is talking about scarcity and that we are actually need to reduce how we live and need to reduce what we build. And yeah, for us, it's just this thing that we have this huge amount of materials just there. And yeah, why not take it and do something with it?
Good. Giulio, Anna?
Yeah, I agree. I think for us, it was very much about identifying a need and then realizing that there was this resource that was abundant, natural, considered waste, considered even a death of a plant that was that is incredibly important in Palestine. And the cause of this death, this insect, but then realizing that actually these can also fulfill some needs that people living with these species may have, especially in the light of climate change and the shifting of their environments. Yeah.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, it's rethinking about materials means also rethinking about design and architecture, and rethinking the standard material libraries. We have there materials that are standardized, and we don't know where they're coming from, which people worked to provide these materials that we find there in cubic, and flat forms. And so it's also a way to reconnect to, communities and landscapes and ecosystems, I guess.
Thank you.
Maybe I can add something as well.
Of course.
I think that for us, having worked in both Ireland and China, where we see in Europe, there's a real push towards degrowth and reuse. But that situation, it can't really apply in a place that is growing so fast and so quickly. And so the major question that we ask is how, if there is to be such huge growth happening elsewhere, how can we use our expertise or our knowledge or our education to question how so much can be built sustainably? Because if you look at modular construction, or if you look at timber construction, when you apply that at such a large scale, it's not tenable. So the question has to be about how things become more localized, but still maintain openness to knowledge and to existing systems that are present throughout the world.
Thank you. Giulio, you will have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the material was important also under a cultural and aesthetic point of view. I mean, these furnitures, in particular, the furniture of these abandoned houses are furnitures that nowadays almost could not be produced anymore in Europe. Like there is no anymore this craftsmanship that can do it. And for us, so it's also, even for this reason, it's important to use them again, because they could still work for another 100 years at least. So.
Okay. So I was given the mic, which means that this panel is over. Let's give a big applause to the fellows. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So with this panel, we have now finished this, let's say, official part of today's conference. We will continue with an internal matchmaking event. Before we do that, let's have some small notes. First of all, to those of you following us online, we will continue tomorrow. We start at 10:45. We will have the presentation of the new LINA member, very exciting, and also we will have keynote lectures. We will have keynote lectures by Keller Easterling, Camilla van Deurs, and Phil Ayers, and also the lecture, The State of the Architecture, by Nick Axel. So thank you very much to those in the audience and to those online to follow us. Thank you very much to all of you in the architectural display for being with us today. And with that, I will propose another applause to finish up the streaming now.